Hey guys, we're back for the new season. So ended up hitting about top 350 or so. So unfortunately didn't make top 250 for the invite to the qualifier weekend, but should definitely be getting at least some of the qualifier points to be able to play in one of the play-ins. So that's still pretty good. Um, Anyways, I wanted to talk about a sideboard for this deck. I know that I got some requests here to sort of talk about a sideboard and maybe like a sideboard guide. If you are going to take this into best of three, first of all, I've kind of changed the deck just a little bit. It's sort of kind of a little bit of back and forth, but ended up putting back in the Lantern Flares and making room for two Hopeful Initiates over the Wardens of the Inner Sky. There was kind of some back and forth there. I think Initiate is a little bit maybe better for this specific deck just because there's a lot of ways to grow it turn after turn with like big Regal Bunnicorns and Adelines and Knight Errants and Steel Seraphs. Oh my. But yeah, also the utility for taking care of enchantments. I think you could run Warden also and do perfectly well. But I kind of I found that there's a little bit of a push-pull between tapping out with Warden and trying to, have time to do Convoke and be aggressive. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I also made room for two copies of Knight of Dawn's Light, and I gotta say, this card in this deck is completely stupid. I had a game against the Azorius Helping Hand Haughty Djinn nonsense deck, and they had two Djinns in play that were like 8 and 9 power respectively, and I was gaining more life in a turn than they could do. It was hilarious, and ended up outpacing them because I had like two veterans in play. I only had one Knight of Dawn's Light and maybe like some Lurker Bats, and I was just gaining obscene amounts of life. So what this guy does is whenever you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. So if all of your triggers are hitting 2 life instead of 1, it just gets really out of hand. If you have multiple of these, then it's like 3 life or 4 life. Just, whew. And I thought life gain was good before. This is a fun card for this deck. So the sideboard plan. Basically, the deck is tuned to beat Mono White Aggro in game 1. And, trying to go over other creature strategies. We don't have very much removal. We just have the Lantern Flares. We try to make up for it by having obscene amounts of life gain. In the board, so one of the real, nightmare matches for this deck is anything that has board wipes and also a lot of dedicated spot removal, like Golgari or Rakdos, Mardu are all bad news. And Azorius Mill / Control, Esper Control also can give this deck a lot of problems because of all the board wipes. So we have kind of a transformation sideboard. The sideboard, you have 14 cards go in and 14 cards go out for the control matchups with board wipes, etc. I'm looking at you, Azorius Mill and Esper Control. You have 3 copies of Kellen Daring Traveler, which is basically just a value card. You're trying to sort of move out the cards that are sort of like low value in that match where you don't need all the life gain and bring in like value cards like Kellen. So I have 3 copies of Kellen. I have 4 copies of Thalia to tax their mana, 3 copies of Invasion of Gobakan to tax their mana, and then also give another way to pump our troops, and then 4 copies of Anointed Peacekeeper to really tax their mana. So you're going full tax mode, putting those Sunfalls out of reach, and what you're cutting, basically we're taking out sort of the life gain package and we're bringing in massive amounts of taxing. So we would cut 4 copies of Lunarch Veteran, 4 copies of Ruin Lurker Bat, 4 copies of, so there's, I guess, a couple ways you can go on this. You can either cut 4 copies of Voice of the Blessed and 2 copies of Lantern Flare to give you the 14. And I've kind of been back and forth on whether to cut Voice of the Blessed or Knight Errant of Eos. Now, I know that Knight Errant of Eos is a value card, but we are bringing in 4 more copies of a 3-drop, and when we lose all of these early game cards, being able to actually play a Knight Errant of Eos becomes much more difficult. In addition, what I found was that in specifically this matchup, especially where you're trying to buy time to prevent wraths, you want to be attacking. And so when you're wasting an entire turn to convoke out a Knight Errant, that's cute and everything, but then they just board wipe it and you like lost a turn. So I'd rather be playing something like Anointed Peacekeeper there, specifically in that spot, so you don't lose an entire turn where you could be attacking. So I think what I'd probably do is I'd probably cut the Veterans, the Ruin Lurker Bats, the Knight Errants, and the Lantern Flares. That's 14 cards. And then I'd leave in Voice of the Blessed because it's still a 2/2 for 2, and it can also gain life off of Steel Seraph on 3. And then what I would bring in is basically all of those 14 cards. 3 copies of Kellen, 4 copies of Thalia, 3 copies of Invasion of Gobekhan, and 4 copies of Anointed Peacekeeper. So you're doing a complete transformation out of your life gain strategy into lots and lots of taxing. That's the plan against Esper Control, Blue-White Control, big board wrath types of decks. Against Mono Red, we really only bring in, like the 15th card here is 1 Knockout Blow. And so basically what I would do is I would just find 1 card here to cut and bring in the Knockout Blow. I don't think that, I think our 3-drops are all better, Thalia is something you could bring in against Mono Red, certainly. But I think, yeah, I mean, I guess you could cut. So the problem that I ran into before is the Resolute Reinforcements don't look that great, but they really kind of hold the deck together by allowing us to go Knight Errant of Eos earlier, and then also making the Regal Bunnicorns better. We have a lot of life gain here. I guess you could possibly cut the Initiates. They're not quite as strong against Mono Red. And what I might say is, if you're on the draw, being able to go into a big Knight Errant of Eos might be too slow. Where you don't have that breathing room to be able to convoke it out. If you're on the play, you're more likely to be able to do that. So I would say maybe if you're on the draw, you could try pulling out the Knight Errants and just putting in 4 copies of Thalia to really kind of lower your curve quite a bit. You could even bring in Peacekeeper, which is great for vigilance and putting some stuff out of reach. So I don't have a perfect answer there for the Mono Red matchup. I think it's kind of dependent if you're going first or second. So if you're on the play, getting into that Knight Errant of Eos with the 4 toughness is pretty nice. But anyways, this is just kind of some food for thought. This is probably how I would build the sideboard if I were to use this in best of 3. So all that said, I actually want to jump into a different deck, which I kind of put together just because I found that, while this deck is great against Mono Red, it doesn't really have much removal, which can be a glaring weakness against other, strategies. Certainly decks that have lots of removal. Also against Mono White, when they have tons of copies of Brutal Cathar, it's just super rough. So I put together a Mono White humans deck, which is mostly humans, kind of for purposes of grinding here on ladder. And I tried to put in a lot of removal while still having creatures. So, with this build, what I've got, I don't have a sideboard for this deck yet, so I'll see if I can put together one. I just haven't had time. But basically, I have 7 pieces of removal. Well, technically 9, since I've got the 2 Iganjos. So the land base is you have 22 land. We've got 2 Iganjos, 2 Myrics, and 18 planes. We have a lot more room for Myrics because we don't have those double white on turn 2 like you do in the other deck. But here you've got 4 copies of Brutal Cathar, 2 copies of Werefox Bodyguard, which kind of act as like the 5th and 6th Brutal Cathar, and then 1 copy of Lay Down Arms. Now, I know that this gives your opponent 3 life, but it can also be used defensively. So like if you're up against mono red and you're about to lose, you can actually target one of your own creatures to gain the life. So it does have kind of that versatility. And with 18 planes in the deck, this should be able to get rid of almost anything. So it kind of plays sort of double duty here as both sort of the life gain against mono red, if absolutely needed, and another piece of removal. So we have essentially 7 pieces of removal, 9 with the Aganjos, which feels a lot better. And then we have, for life gain against mono red, we've got the 4 Lunarch Veterans. We have 2 copies of Intrepid Adversary, and then like the Lay Down Arms. So we are quite a bit lighter on the life gain. However, that being said, we do have a lot more early game here. We've got a couple Thalias. We have the Coppercoat Vanguards to kind of make it a little bit harder to target our stuff. And then, of course, we do have, a bunch of removal cards here as well. So is it going to be as good against mono red? Probably not. But it is going to be, I think, better in general against a wider variety of decks. And that's a big if, but it's something that I'm kind of exploring. So the other pieces here of the deck, you have 4 copies of Ward in the Inner Sky, 4 copies of Lunarch Veteran, and then 3 copies of Recruitment Officer and 3 copies of Hopeful Initiate to try to get quite a bunch of 1-drops here. I think we have 14, and then the 1 Lay Down Arms. For our 2-drops, we have 4 copies of Coppercoat Vanguard to buff everything, 2 copies of Intrepid Adversary for sort of the life gain / pump, 2 copies of Thalia to do a little bit of taxing, and then 1 copy of Spellbook Vendor, which really is another nice way to kind of pump the squad. And you don't want too many of these. I think you can certainly run too many, but just running kind of the one of is great if you hit, and you can, put it in all of your creatures eventually. For the 3/4 drops, we have 4 Brutal Cathar, 2 Werefox Bodyguard, 4 Adeline, and 4 Knight Errant of Eos. So, what we're taking out here, we're losing Angel, which could potentially give us some more life gain in favor of some more creature removal here on a stick. And the other possibility that you could consider would be like Sanguine Evangelist, which is kind of for more of a going wide strategy. Since we're not running the Resolute Reinforcements, this feels a little bit better, kind of a bit more targeted. So all that said, let's do a couple games here with the Mono White Humans deck. It's kind of what I've been grinding here. I've only had a chance to do a couple games here on Ladder, but I've really been enjoying it so far. And part of kind of what sort of sparked this interest is I ran into another player who was, I think, ranked 245 Mythic when I was trying to get qualified here at the end of left, just before the reset here. And I didn't, see his fullest. I just saw what he was playing, but he did kind of make me think about some things here where, using like the Brutal Cathars and Werefox Bodyguards in tandem just to get even more removal, which seemed like a pretty cool idea. So I don't know what his list is, but I think the player's name was Vandal. So at any rate, sometimes, if I see a player that I'm up against that has a great idea, I do want to certainly give them credit, but have a look at it also myself. So let's get into some games. If you're new here, thanks so much for visiting my channel, and I really appreciate you guys. If you end up liking my content, please consider subscribing, maybe dropping a comment or a like, or sharing it with a friend. And then if you're one of my returning viewers, thank you so much again, guys, for being here. I really appreciate your support. It does mean the world to me. Actually, 1 second here. I have to admit I'm a little bit sleep deprived here. So yeah, hopefully be able to catch up here a little bit. But yeah, this opening hand looks great. Okay, so let's lead out here with Initiate. And we can go to like maybe like a turn 2 Adversary to get ready to pump this up. Okay, blue-white control. So instead, we're happy to drop Thalia here. The other point here is like with Bodyguard, this can also kind of like protect like your Adeline, like in face of a board wipe or something like that against mono white or blue-white control or Esper. So there are some other nice things that it can do. Also being a flash creature is kind of nice. So they could have some stuff here, but I got to attack to kind of get things going. So we might be walking into removal. I guess we're going to find out. And then now they could have like temporary lockdown next turn, which would be kind of unfortunate. So I think I'm actually just going to like I guess we could play Warden out. Yeah, maybe we just push for it. Like you never know, which one they've got, whether it's temporary lockdown or the 4 mana or 5 mana Wrath. And then they're still at 20, so we gotta sort of like kind of make a little bit more of a push. We could go for like Intrepid Adversary next turn and just try to push with that, or we could like push the whole squad out there. I'm not really sure. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and end the turn though, and maybe just have like these 3 creatures to present a board. Okay, so they do have the lockdown. I'm happy that I didn't use Adversary. So here I think I'm going to use Bodyguard to protect the Thalia so that we can still get the Thalia here. So I think this works. Okay, I guess the Werefox Bodyguard has to die first, but then Thalia will come back. So I forgot that this thing doesn't actually hit 3 drops. So we can always sacrifice it to gain 2 life and, tax their mana a little bit more. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and play out the Adversary and start pushing with this. This way, if they like Sunfall or something, we can at least get our Thalia back. Okay, Depopulate works too. So we could go Officer and try to like draw into something. We could also go like these 2 and go for the Scry. I think I'm just going to try to draw a card here, though. I don't want to get too greedy and get blown out. I guess Cathar is decent if they have like Sunfall, but they could have Sunfalled right there. I think I'm going to go for Warden here. Now we can go ahead and start scrying with Warden. We can also push. I feel like they might have Wandering Emperor here. At the same point, we do also have to like push damage, so maybe we just attack with these two and see what they do. Like, at least we have the Aganjo in case they try something funny. I think we just stick with these two right now and just keep drawing cards. I don't really want to put a third guy out there just yet. It is a little bit anemic, but I think that, you know, we need to build a little bit back before we are in danger of being wrathed again. I think doing it main phase here is fine. Okay, Spellbook Vendor looks great. Okay, so they're going for, they probably have Jace in hand. We're at 44 cards. That'll put us down to 22. So if they have double Jace, we're in danger of just losing next turn. We do have the Aganjo, but they will still get the attack off. I think the move here, Spellbook Vendor, put it on Thalia. They might want to block the 2-1. Then we can use Aganjo. And I guess they get to do it anyways. They just have to play it from their graveyard. But we're at least spending a little bit of their time. So now I think we play these three out and then hold Brutal Cathar in case they get the Incubator token going. So Initiate's kind of nice here, since we can use it to give another counter to our Warden, so we can blow this up in case they try to get fancy with it. We could just swing in, but I don't want to get blocked by this 3-3. So I think we play it safe, slow it down a little bit. Okay, we'll let them pay the ward, and then we'll use Initiate to blow up their Phyrexian token. Now we can just put the counters right back on Warden. we've got 42 cards in library. We're still a couple turns away from them being able to kill us with Jace plus Mindbreaker.
My refuge shall be the truth. Flesh, I know where to find all the answers.
Okay, so they're representing a second Jace in hand, since they've got Mindbreaker ready here. They probably have Get Lost. So if they go like Mindbreaker, we go down to 19 cards, and then they have Jace plus Jace is enough to kill us. If we don't kill Jace this turn, and they have the Get Lost for like our Vanguard, we just lose. So I think we have to respect Jace, unfortunately. We should have enough if we... So I think this is the play. We go these two on Jace and Warden on face. This way, even if they get lost, one of them will have the other one hit Jace. Yeah, there's the Get Lost like we expected. But now they can't kill us in one turn. Unless they have two Jaces. So here I think we want to try to set up for lethal. We could play the Cathar out. We also could just get rid of their Celestis to kind of tie up their mana a little bit. Or get the temporary lockdown. So I think let's play Cathar. And we also have enough to see if we can get one more counter. And let's spread it out. Actually, I guess we could have put it on the Brutal Cathar. That would have been better. So now we have enough to take off the Celestis. So they're going to need 4 mana here to do that, and then that leaves them with another 5. So they'll have enough to do another Jace either way. So I think we sit. Yeah, because now they can get us down to 19. Yeah, they don't quite have enough. So now they need to find a board wipe. Okay, they're going for the Mindbreaker. The nice thing is we can get the Mindbreaker before they even get to attack, which is kind of funny. So this plan doesn't even work. Now we can take out Jace, or we could drop them down to 3. Yeah, I think we need to work on their life total a little bit. Because as long as we have tokens here, we should be able to take out the next Mindbreaker, and they can't do it with Jace alone. I guess if we take Jace out, though, they won't be able to shrink our Warden, so there is that. Yeah, I guess it's worth it. So now we were going to have, let's see, this will be a 1-2. We don't quite have enough. If they have one more piece of removal, let's see, they can gain a fair amount of life here. So I think we go for Initiate. Obviously, they can draw into board wipes. Toss the Jace. Interesting. Okay, lockdown. So I think we use Initiate. So when the lockdown hits, in response to that, we just get rid of the lockdown, and then it doesn't work. I think that's how that works. So I'm fairly sure this just stops it. Yeah. Yeah, Hopeful Initiate is sweet. Definitely in this match. Oh, man. Alright, so we're going to hit for 3, 5, 7, 8. Yeah, this should be lethal if they've got nothing. I guess they can still Faithful Mending here, so they're not dead. Surprised they let us get the attack there, because now we've got the counters again. And now we can threaten their Mindbreaker. Let's just put some more counters on. Okay, I guess let's go for the larger one then. See if we get one to be larger than the other. Nope. Okay. So much for that. We could have played Knight Errant there, but I wanted to leave mana open in case they tried to go for Mindbreaker. I don't think we want to flip it back. I think we just fight through this stuff. If they want to double block Warden, that's fine. Yeah, I think I was thinking it was day phase instead of night phase. Okay, there's the Sunfall. I guess let's get the Celestis on the way out. Unfortunately here, I think we've got to go for the double spell. Yeah, they just have a ton of cards here, so they easily could have another board wipe. I think we just got to try to fight through it. Like, we're kind of out of time. We can't really hold back anymore. Yeah, and that's probably going to do it. Let's see, we have 11 cards left, or... Okay, that's a good one. I mean... But I think if they find their Jace, I mean, that's got to be it. So we have one card left in our library. I think, yeah, that's going to do it. One more attack phase. Well, we definitely did as much as we could. I think that the Hopeful Initiates were great in this matchup, especially against the temporary lockdowns and also against the Mind Breakers, but it wasn't quite enough. They had a little bit too much nonsense for us. Opponent was just slow rolling it, I think.
Phyrexian's plans are already in motion.
Yeah, opening hand was great. So I think Orzhov is mostly just Path of Peril and Sunfall, probably. Especially with Farmhand, this looks like a very controlling build. We could Brutal Cathar here. If they wipe everything, they get another Farmhand activation, which isn't super exciting. So I think maybe we just leave Intrepid Adversary home and then attack with everything else. We could also try to go for even more stuff, but then they just board wipe. That feels pretty bad. Could have also played Spellbook Fender there, but I don't think we need to. Guess let's put one on Initiate just in case they kill the Spellbook Vendor.
And may your peace last.
Seems like a pretty good target for Brutal Cathar.
I can't protect everyone.
So I think we just push Adversary here and see what they do. So if they have Wandering Emperor, I guess they could get back... If we attack with everything, they could get back the Brute. Although they have to pay 3 life in order to target it. So they'd pay 3 and then gain 2 life. So functionally pay 1, go down to 8. They'd have a blocker. So we'd hit them for 4. Otherwise, yeah, we're not doing lethal. I think it's still fine. I assume they have Wandering Emperor here. Yeah.
Now you've done it. Hat's coming off.
They don't die either way, but the question is... I think they probably kill the Brute. Oh, maybe not.
Gods, to me.
Now they probably board wipe. Get back their farmhand. And then make a token.
I'm never done with this good.
So no board wipe.
You're not ready for this moment.
No more distractions.
I've always hated it.
Yeah, unfortunately here I think we have to get rid of our Spellbook Vendor. I guess we could keep Vendor and then lose the Adversary, but that seems kind of bad. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Would be a great hand, but we need more mana. I think we have to mulligan this. And this. Yuck. Alright, so I think we want to go something like 1, 2, 3, like this. Okay, the cave deck. Gotcha. Normally would attack, but I think we want to go Warden here. Just get the extra value. So that is a freebie, so I think we just go for it. I feel like Bodyguard might be really good here. I mean, Coppercoat Vanguard's super good too. Maybe it's good to hedge getting one of each. Like, removal is nice. We haven't got the mana for it. I think it's probably the move though. Oh, excuse me. Board wipe or no? Don't think Spelunking is going to do it. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, if you like this deck, give it a try. I think it is a good deck. It does have a lot of potential. And if you like the life gain deck more, by all means, do that. But I do think that it has quite a bit more removal, which if you like having removal, I know that my decks usually are pretty removal light, so I think this is going to be a nice change for there. Let's take a look at the stats. Okay, so it is currently 80% win rate, 4 wins and 1 loss. It is 100% win rate on the draw, on the play, and then 50% on the draw. So yeah, it looks like blue-white. It was a pretty kind of back and forth match. We did a decent job, but they just kind of outdrew us eventually off all the deluges. So anyways, give this deck a try if you like it, and we will see you here in the next one.